This is called the parable of the neglected treasure. Many times you're going to be talking to people who are going to try and bypass Jesus to get to God, or bypass God to get to his riches and his benefits. For example, how many people want the benefits and the blessings of heaven? You know, they want the power of God, they want the goodness of God, but they don't want God. And so this is going to be a common thing with a lot of people that you talk to. And so this is called the parable of the neglected treasure. One day there was a rich man and he passed. And so what had happened now is that his house, because his son had died in his, I think it was his early 30s, his son had died a horrible death, and there was no one else left to give his inheritance to. So what they decided is they're going to have to do an auction for this man's house, all his goods, all his treasures. And so the whole of the community, and many people are told about this, so rich people come from far and near, and all types of people have come to the house to gather to do this auction, to bid for this man's property and his goods. So anyway, the first thing that they happen to put up for bid at this auction is a portrait of this man's only son, whom this man loved very much. And so this is the first thing that must go. So it's the rule that was written in this man's will, that when you bid for my house, the first thing that must be sold is a portrait of my son. Then you can start bidding for all the other goods, the antique, the china, the house, the cars. But first thing that must go is the portrait of my son. As the auctioneer says, right, we're going to start off the bidding for this portrait of this man's son, and we'll start it at, I don't know, let's say £1,000. He's trying to be generous, thinking it's bound to go way up. Everyone's so disinterested in this picture. They're like, this is really not what we've come for. We've come for this man's goods. We want the antique, we want his cars, we want even the carpet, you know, we want all this other stuff, but this is the last thing we want. This is of no benefit to us. So the auctioneer's kind of a bit embarrassed, and he's like, okay, let's maybe start at £500. No one's bidding. Goes down to 400, 300, 200. Not one hand going up to bid for this man's son's portrait. Finally, it comes down to about £50, and it just so happens that the caretakers who's in the house, who really love this man that owned the house and he worked for him for many years, is watching all that's going on, and he's grieved because he remembers how this man really loved his son. And in his heart, he kind of thinks, man, I've only got £50, but I just really want to do all I can to honour this man's son and the portrait of him. So as the bid goes down to £50 for this man's portrait, the old man raises his hand and he says, I'll offer £50. So the auctioneer looks around, he says, anyone offer 60? Nobody's flinching, there's no movement. He says, right, going once, going twice, going 3 times, sold to this old man for £50 is the portrait of this man's son. No sooner has he said that, he says, by the way, the bidding is now closed, there'll be nothing else auctioned. Everything in this house and this house now belongs to this old man. You see, what this man had done, had put a condition that whoever buys the portrait of my son gets everything. And so it is with the kingdom. If you have Jesus, you have everything. Many times people are trying to get the benefits of the kingdom without the king. But you see, if you've got the king, you've got everything. And that is what we need people to understand, that heaven wouldn't be heaven unless God was there. The thing that we need to do is put the gift giver above the gifts that he gives. Because he is life, and in him it was the light of men, and so he's the thing we need more than anything else. It's all about Jesus. That's the parable of the neglected treasure.